Hello and welcome to the Cinema Savvy Movie Podcast, the channel for film reviews, discussions and everything in between. I'm Chris Garner, joined with my co-host George Aldridge, and today is our smaller midweek show called Film Club, where we review whatever movie was nominated by either of us at the end of our main show. Our main show this week was our top 10 all-time favourite films list, and George, it was your turn to pick a film this week. You picked the 2009 comedy film Fanboys, so just before we get into our review of it, just give us a reason why you picked it.
Yeah, so this film is tied into Star Wars. It follows a group of people who invade Lucas Ranch just before Episode 1 comes out, so it's an easy film to tie in with my top choice, your number 2, so it's kind of perfect for the show, I think.
Yeah, definitely, and obviously we're both massive Star Wars fans, and this is just a film I've seen quite a few times because it's just fun. It's made for us Star Wars fans, really. It's just a love letter to those films.
These are the most secure buildings on Earth. The White House, the Pentagon, the Kremlin, and George Lucas's Skywalker Ranch.
It started as the ultimate heist.
Linus laid the whole thing out in 5th grade.
What's your game plan?
We storm the ranch or we die trying.
This is a suicide mission.
It will become the ultimate road trip.
Strap in, fellas.
So what happens, you're introduced at a house party to these three massive Star Wars geeks, which is a sort of skinny, wimpy guy called Windows, Hutch, a big guy, and Linus, who's one of the main characters, and you're introduced to Bottler, who was once part of their crew but kind of got older, started working more. And then you get introduced to the story that Linus has actually got terminal cancer and won't make it to the opening of Episode 1. And this is at about 8 months, I think, before the film comes out, 7-8 months. So they go on a road trip to steal a copy of Episode 1's rough cut from Lucas Ranch. That's basically it.
But what was interesting is you messaged me the other day saying that however many days this is set before the release of Episode 1, that's how many days it was for us now before Episode 7 comes out.
Yeah, it was scary because in the crawl for this film it says Episode 1's out in 199 days. And
Yeah.
I'd just seen a Facebook thing that day, or that morning, saying that Star Wars was out in 200. So that basically meant there was 199 days, like 2 hours, whatever it was. So it literally matched it, which was really scary, but cool at the same time.
And what I think is good about this film is that although we were kind of kids when the prequels came out, so we didn't get sucked into the hype of it really, you can put yourself in that situation now. Like I think if someone older watched this who grew up with the originals, they could put themselves into that situation, you know, the hype, the speculation coming out about it, the queuing up like at the very end of the film. And that's kind of what I want for Episode 7. Like, I want to be with a bunch of people like these guys in this film, queuing up on the streets for Episode 7, everyone in costume, everyone just celebrating Star Wars.
Yeah, I know, that would be amazing. I think the issue now is we live in the sort of digital era, so although I think at some of the places, arguably America more than England, you will get the queues, you'll have people dressed up, but I mean for Episode 1, some people camped out for 30 days before the film came out. So I think due to internet pre-booking tickets, that's almost impossible now that everyone will have their ticket. But it would be really cool if we could get something like that. I just don't think we'll get it to that level. I think you'll probably have the 5.0 first at a few major locations, which will be really cool, but it kind of makes you want to see it really soon, because you're right, this is Episode 7 to us is what 1's going to be to these. The difference is a lot of Star Wars fans doubted the prequels because everyone sort of knew what would have to happen, and so it didn't go their own way. I think with the new one, because of the arguably failure of the prequels, it's going to be interesting to see everyone's reaction leading up to the release of the film.
And I think hype's been kind of brought back now following the new trailer coming out, because obviously after the prequels, a lot of people, you had some diehard fans that were like, yeah, it's Star Wars, no matter what, it's going to be good. But then our expectations have been tempered now because we've been exposed to a world where Star Wars can be bad. Yeah, and obviously when this is set, this was before that. Obviously it's set before Episode 1 comes out, so you've kind of got these really excitable avid Star Wars fans, and that's why I think this film. I know it didn't do very well at all money. It was done like on a 4 mil budget, and it didn't even make a mil back. But I think it would be interesting to do a sequel to this now that obviously we've had all the prequels come out and we're going into new films. And I think you were talking about that a sequel was rumoured or something like that.
Yeah, so the writer of How Star Wars Conquered the Universe, I've forgotten his name, which is embarrassing. He got an interview with one of the...
Chris Taylor.
Chris Taylor, that's the one. He got an interview with one of the screenplay from Fanboys. He said if they were to do a sequel, he'd want it set after the release of episode 2, so you'd have a dynamic where one of the characters hates the film, the others likes it, and the thirds are neutral. So it would be awesome to see something like that. My issue was, although it did make its money back, came out February '09, and at that time there was nothing Star Wars. If Fanboys would have come out in 2015, it probably would have made a lot more. I think it would have been easier to market it, especially with the new film coming out. It's a shame because I love this film. I think it's hilarious, but critics don't. I think it's a film made for Star Wars fans.
Oh, definitely. And I remember, because it didn't get a major release, I don't think, did it? It came out February, but I don't remember hearing much talk about it. And I saw I think I may have seen like one trailer or something like that, or the poster for it. The poster I definitely remember, the one with the sort of red background with a guy wearing a Vader mask on the front. And it was just always one of those films that I never got around to seeing, but it was constantly in the back of my mind, the name of it, that I had to get around to watching it at some point. And I think one morning I just watched it on a whim, because I just wanted something new, and it was just so much fun. And obviously, it's kind of the good thing about this movie, but also the bad thing for wider audiences. If you're not a Star Wars fan, then one, why are you watching this film? But two, I think it kind of alienates the audience a bit. This is a film clearly made by Star Wars fans for Star Wars fans. I mean, the whole film basically relies on references to Star Wars. You've got cameos from people that are involved in it, and if you're not clued up really in depth, like on a massive nerd level, like the characters are in this film, on everything Star Wars, then most of it's going to go over your head.
Yeah, because I remember seeing this. It came out in '09. I didn't see it till 2011 because I remember we had an engineer around, and I was like reading a few magazines, and he was chatting about Star Wars, and then he said that he saw this film. He said it was called Fanboys, about sort of they go to Lucas Ranch. I was intrigued by that. I remember I saw it online like the day after, and it was hilarious. Then on that same day, my mum and dad actually went out and bought the film because they like saw me getting excited about it. So I'd seen it once, then they all saw it. I watched it again with them, and it's interesting because my mum and dad recognised one or two of the actors, but not all of them. And I forgot my sister, like she knew it, but the other one didn't. So it was really cool to watch with the family because I think Star Wars is like a sort of family thing. But it's one of them. I picked up everything. A few of them picked up minor things. So it's interesting to watch it because I think a few of the cameos are obvious. I think 90% of people that have seen a Star Wars film would know that it was Carrie Fisher. Would know it was Lando, or sorry, Billy D. Williams. But then I think you'd have a lot of others who wouldn't know who Kevin Smith is, the director. You wouldn't know who Ray Park is because he's not in his Darth Maul makeup.
Yeah, and in case you don't know who these characters are, they go massively out of their way to make sure you know who these characters are by them dropping lines and references to either their character or just a line from Star Wars. Like, obviously, the bit with Carrie Fisher, she's basically a nurse, and they're trying to get Linus out of the hospital to just make that last push to get to Skywalker Ranch, and they do the whole, I love you, I know. They do lines like that, or Ray Park says you're about to get mauled, boy.
Yeah,
so it's stuff like that. Some people may find that a bit cringeworthy, and I do think that definitely towards the end of the film, the references get a little bit too much. But obviously, because we're Star Wars fans, it's just kind of charming in a way, and I just kind of go with it.
Featuring Princess Leia, Lando Calrissian, Darth Maul, Shooter McGavin, the warehouse guy from The Office, the guy from Tropic Thunder, Jay, the guy from Die Hard 4, the hot chick from Sin City, and Captain James T. Kirk.
Friend of yours?
Yeah, cause I think the Carrie Fisher one was funny because she's like, "Oh, I know," and I thought that's hilarious. The you're about to get mauled, boy. I thought it was okay, and then he just because obviously he was a stuntman before he was Maul. he like got his like kendo sticks out and was like jumping around, which I thought was funny at the time. I saw it again, and it wasn't as funny. I think it's one of them films where the first time you watch it's like the time to see it.
Mm.
But then what I love is that William Shatner has a big. I mean, Star Trek's a big part of this film. We'll go into that later on. But William Shatner's in it, who is Captain Kirk in Star Trek. If no one knew that.
Mm.
And they're kind of like, how do you have all this information? He's like, because I'm William Shatner. He's like, I'll get anything.
Yeah.
And then it plays off that. I thought that's hilarious because that's what he's like in real life. It's what Kirk's like in Star Trek as well.
And none of the cameos outstay their welcome, I don't think, either. I think they're in it just as long as they need to be. Because any longer and it would kind of be eye-rolling and just like, oh, okay, we get it, it's from Star Trek. Star Trek and Star Wars usually don't like each other. But I think they do it in the way and how they integrate him into the story. It just makes sense, and it's it is funny when he shows up because you're expecting it, and he kind of shows up his like in silhouette in a darkened room, and then obviously when he walks into the camera, then you realise who it is, and it's just cool.
It's funny because it's one of them that you don't expect like the main guy from Star Trek to appear in a Star Wars fan film. So it was like quite refreshing as well because you get the rivalry in play, and it kind of happens there. And he's like, oh, they're like, why did you include your book? It's like, for reading. Because he's obviously so cocky with himself. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
And I think one of the best one, it's not really a Star Wars cameo, but Seth Rogen.
Oh, he's so good in this film. He plays two characters.
Yeah, well, actually a third. He's one of the aliens, but it's not. He only has like one line in a foreign language. But the first character is this proper Trekkie. I don't know his name, but he's given a sort of tour around the state that Captain Kirk's born in with all these Trekkies. He's talking about they created a statue, but they couldn't get the rights to make him look like Spock. No, sorry, not Spock.
There's
Khan, and also he couldn't get the rights to make him look like Kirk either. So there's literally this two golden statues for no reason, and it kind of has this scene where all the Star Wars fans go over to the Trek place just to like sort of take the piss out of him, which is hilarious because when I first saw it, I didn't know a lot about Star Trek, but I've like never liked it. So like for me, like them taking the piss out of Star Trek was by far one of the funniest moments, and it has without a doubt one of the greatest like geek fight scenes I've ever seen on screen.
Oh god, yeah. And just you said you couldn't remember the guy's name. I've just checked it. He was called Admiral C. Schultz. I don't think that's ever said in the film, but yeah, I haven't met a hardcore Trekkie to have that kind of argument with. But I know if I did, we probably would, because we're easily on Team Star Wars here. Like when the Trekkies call Han Solo a bitch, and Hutch kind of stops in his tracks, slowly turns around. Like, you're with him in that moment. You're like, yeah, you know, you don't fucking badmouth Han Solo here, boy. But obviously, Trekkies and Star Wars fans, they just argue in a loving way. It's all good fun. Obviously, some people take it a bit too far, but it'd be like didn't it happen a few years ago? Like a bunch of Trekkies showed up to a Star Wars convention, and I think there was like a big fist fight. It reminded me of this.
I never heard it. I wouldn't be surprised if something happened, but I think with this, when you get to the fight, I mean, we say fight, you'd think punches, no. He kind of pushes him, and like everyone gasps because obviously, like the standard geek, they don't fight; they're all weak. So he's really insulted that he got pushed, and then they start like brawling like with their objects, and it's really funny because I think there's a scene where Linus kind of like pins this Trekkie down who's dressed up as Spock. And he like bites his ear off, and obviously it's a fake Spock ear, and he like flies it into the air. Like you get the slow-mo shot of it coming off, and then there's the Trekkie on the floor crying, like holding the fake ear, like my ear, and his like real one's underneath. His real one's still there, so I thought it was great fun seeing that.
Yeah, and then obviously they use the Millennium Falcon style van and just run over the Khan and Kirk statue, and then you get the Star Trek reference, you get the Khan, you get that moment.
Yeah, and it's great because they make a joke about Darth Vader, where he's like, oh yeah, he's like Darth Vader, he's got asthma, he wouldn't do anything in a fight. And then at the end of the scene, the guy that's been slagging off him for having asthma's actually got it because he like can't shout the word no properly. But oh my god, that single fight scene is one of like my favourite cinematic scenes of all time. It's because I'd react that way.
Yeah, and that's the good thing about this film is that you can put yourself in that situation. I think we should get into the our main characters a bit now because I love every single one of our main protagonists in this film, and I love these kind of movies as well. It's the typical sort of buddy road movie. Um, Comparing it to another comedy that's a road movie, Dumb and Dumber is my favourite comedy film of all time. It's just the whole road movie, and it's like the companionship with all the friends, and you buy their friendship as well. The kind of banter they have is the banter I have with some of my friends, especially around Star Wars and everything. You've got you touched on it at the beginning, but you've got Windows, who's kind of the wimpy character, and all of the cast in general, I think, mirror archetypes from the actual Star Wars characters. Like with Windows, he's the wimpy one. He doesn't want to get into trouble or situations. That's like C-3PO. Obviously, Hutch is like Han Solo. He even dresses like Han Solo. He pilots his own van and all that stuff. And then you've got Bottler, who's kind of the dreamer who wants more and is being controlled by his dad. That's like Luke Skywalker. Kristen Bell, obviously, she's the headstrong, feisty female character. That's Leia. And I guess Linus, I was trying to think what character he'd blend with more.
He's a bit of a Chewbacca, I think.
See, I thought he was more R2-D2 because R2-D2 has the knowledge. He has more knowledge than everyone. And that kind of refers to the ending where he's the only one that gets exposed to Phantom Menace.
Yeah, but with me, I kind of saw him as the loyal companion. And that's what kind of Chewbacca is, because he's always there with them. Then you're right, he's got some like traits that R2-D2 has. And the whole film centres around Linus, as does the Star Wars saga centre around R2-D2.
Yeah. I don't know if that was intentional. Obviously, the Han Solo thing was, but that was just something I picked up watching the movie.
Yeah, because I never noticed it till you said it, but now I've clocked onto it. It's quite obvious, but even inside the characters, that they have their own personas. So Windows, I think that's probably his nickname because he's always on like a computer whenever we see him, and then he's on like a Star Wars chat room with this girl that describes herself as like
what's she called? Yeah, I'm trying to think of a username.
They're funny, and then because she kind of thinks she's a Sharon Stone and she's not. He's being catfished, but then he describes himself as a white Billy D. Williams, and his like name on screen is called White Chocolate to her. So I mean, it's so funny because he's like in love with her, and they actually meet, and then she's a 10-year-old girl.
Yeah. Oh, I've just checked on Wikipedia. Her username was Road Leader. I couldn't remember what it was.
It's a simple one.
Yeah.
And then it's that they meet and he's like horrified, and that's like the first catfish.
Yeah.
Because he's like, oh, I'm a pedophile, and then they like get him out of there, and then her older brother comes down, starts on them, and he's actually like a really famous Star Wars blogger.
Yeah, and he's the one who plays Randy, Earl's brother in My Name Is Earl. That's another one of the cameos. But I love that scene where he's quizzing them on Star Wars because I love just shouting at the screen and trying to get the answers before the characters.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because he says to him, "Well, yeah, what's Chewbacca's home?" Like straight away, I was like Kashyyyk. Yeah. But then again, you put it back to there in 1998. The only people that heard of Kashyyyk was the Star Wars Holiday Special. So it would have been a hard one. I mean, a lot of people still would have got it, but there's a few little questions that like Star Wars fans can get, like who directed Episode 5. Everyone knows it's Kershner unless you're not really into it, because I mean, you can speak to the average film person, they think George Lucas directed all 6. Yeah,
and then I think there was one question that was, what's Luke's call sign in A New Hope? Obviously, it's Red 5. It's just stuff like that. I love the putting yourself into the film because I know that I could just hang out with all the guys in this film and just get on perfectly. Because this is what I'm like with my mates. And my favourite character in this one's Hutch. I don't know if he's your favourite character out of the group as well.
I think he's high up there. I think I like them all. Like they've all got their own personas, but I think Hutch probably stands out the most, I think.
Yeah, and there's that running gag as well where they always keep saying you live in your parents' garage, and he's like, it's a carriage house, it's not a garage. And then that van he's got, oh my god, I want that van. And he just listens to Rush all the time. I don't quite get why it's Rush, because obviously that has no Star Wars connection at all. but it's just a fun little quirk the character has.
Yeah, because it's like, what's the one rule of the van? It's like rush, always rush.
Yeah.
And it's like he opens up the cassette box and like every single one is Rush, which is great fun. I mean, because they're a great band. And then it just kind of comes out of nowhere. Like they play one or two of their songs, like the slow mo clips.
Yeah.
Oh, and it kind of. I mean, after I saw that, you kind of thought like Rush suits the film, but in all honesty, any band could have. But to me, like whenever someone says Rush now, you kind of think of Fanboys.
Yeah. No, I totally do as well now. Yeah. And I'm trying to think of something else that Hutch does in the movie, but I'll try and think of it. If you want to carry on, move on to another character, I'll come back to it.
I don't know who to talk about. I think you speak about Butler for a bit. I mean, in all honesty, as a protagonist, you introduce a Butler, like we're kind of following him, so he's coming back in to meet his old friends. And then he starts out as the typical guy that you'd hate. He's really boring, wants to go to work, seems a bit of a jerk. But then as the film evolves, so does he, and he's buzzing for this trip. He's the one that wants to get to Skywalker Ranch, in all honesty, more than the others do. So we kind of follow him because the more it plays, the more we like him, and the more I think we like the film.
Oh, and his massively out of place dad in this film as well.
Yeah.
Who's hilarious. I know I've seen him in something, and I know you read through a few things, but none of which I've seen, but I've definitely seen him in something before. I may have seen him in a few episodes of My Name Is Earl, because it looks like he's got one of those faces. I think he plays almost exactly the same character in that series as well.
I wouldn't be surprised because he's kind of got that slick businessman deal. He is in the Adam Sandler film Happy Gilmore, that's the one. And he's hilarious. He's like the evil golfer in it. That's like his main rival throughout. And that's one of Adam Sandler's best ones, probably his best one. But he's great. And he's only got one or two scenes, but he's just like awesome.
And then obviously we've got Kristen Bell's character as well. I actually really like Kristen Bell in this movie. I think she gets into the role really well, and she's almost one of the guys in this film. That's what I like about her. She could have been the kind of distant sort of character who kind of frowns on Star Wars, but no, she's a massive Star Wars fan as well. There's that great scene in the comic book store towards the start, and that's the scene I was trying to think of with Hutch, where you get two Trekkies come in who want like a phaser gun or something, and he says, "We put this in here to weed out pesky Trekkie fans," and he just shouts them out of the store.
Oh, it's so funny. It's when they walk through the door, like you get kind of ironic now. You get a J.J. Abrams lens flare coming in, and you just have this like proper geek. He's half bald. He's got the rest of it's a big afro, glasses, sticking out teeth. He looks like I forgot the name. That family out of Family Guy. Just picture the ginger Family Guy weird family walking.
It's Mort from Family Guy.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Picture Mort walking into a shop to buy a phaser, and he's like, no. And that's your main introduction to him, and from that moment you're like, this guy's awesome. And it's the whole like comic book shop dynamic. I mean, you look in the comic book shop, everything they sell is Star Wars except the phaser gun, which they only have to like annoy the Trekkies, which is like basic trolling as well. I mean, that's awesome.
It's like if we owned a comic book store, we'd do exactly the same thing after this film.
Exactly. I think you'd do it for loads of franchises, but it's one of them where, because obviously I at that point seen it for the first time, I'd never seen Star Trek. I was definitely there like, yes, it's like I don't know any of these Star Trek references, but it's hilarious because I dislike it.
Yeah.
Which
and
is kind of,
oh, go on, sorry.
I was going to say it's kind of ironic. So although I'd never seen it back then, it was your initial like Star Wars fan that you can hate it. Although now, to be fair, I can say I've seen a few of the films, I still dislike Star Trek.
Yeah, same here. And it goes back to that thing again with Star Wars. It works so well with parody. You don't get many Star Trek parodies really, and Star Wars, there's hundreds out there. You just go on YouTube, type in Star Wars parody, you'll be there for like days trying to watch them all.
Exactly. I mean, I know we reviewed Galaxy Quest last week. The difference of that, Galaxy Quest is essentially Star Trek, and it's the only parody people think of. With Fanboys, I mean, that's just one of dozens. There's been so many. I mean, you can look at.
You got like the Robot Chickens. You got the Family Guy Star Wars.
There's that the film from the late '80s. I forgot the name.
Oh, Spaceballs. Spaceballs, of course, yeah.
That's the main one. I mean, they got like Yoda's yoga. There's so many, but the thing is, George Lucas loves the parodies. He's a massive fan of them, and then leading into Fanboys, obviously they had permission to film Skywalker Ranch. He saw a early cut. He really enjoyed it, so he told them, the directors and the editors, that they're welcome to use the sound effects from Star Wars films.
And
I mean,
they make the most of that in that last, like the whole third act of the movie when they break into Skywalker Ranch. You've got obviously like the blast doors making the noise. Do some of the pistols make the same noise as well? I think. Like
yeah,
laser gun sounds.
and I think there's one standout, which is it's about the first third of the film. They're driving around and the cops start chasing them, so they drive through a billboard.
Oh yeah.
And then as they go through, it's shaped like Darth Vader's helmet, and I think on the left and right side it's cut out to say like it says like the Force be with you. And then the headlights are Vader's eyes, and then they just put the sound effects on the top of his breathing, which is like hilarious.
And it works, doesn't it? There's some references, as I said earlier, that you kind of roll your eyes and go, "Oh, okay, yeah, we get it." But stuff like that, like I love visual gags, like sight gags like that. It's why some of my favourite comedy films, like Airplane, Rat Race, and all kind of stuff like that, where they do sight gags, or what's it called, Hot Shots. They do a lot of those kind of things as well. It kind of reminds me of the style of that. But yeah, that when they get into Skywalker Ranch and they get into the main office and you see all those props around, it almost brings a tear to your eye, because what I would give to be in that room, I would have exactly the same reaction that the characters do in this film.
I know, and the famous thing with Skywalker Ranch is that you can't get tours there. You only go there if you're invited. So if you're doing post-production on a film, you're allowed to go there if you're doing sound. But there's stories where famous people have actually asked to go and they've been like politely declined.
Yeah.
Just incredible. The fact they were allowed to film there is an achievement in itself, let alone like have George Lucas. I love the film.
And it's even in that scene as well where I believe it's Windows. He goes like, "Oh, it's the spellbook and wand from Willow. Anyone?
Yeah.
Anyone?" And I was like, I'm right there. Like, yes, Willow's awesome. You got stuff from Indiana Jones there as well. But okay, here's a question: if you were in that room and you could take with you one prop, what prop would it be?
Ooh.
For me, it would probably be a lightsaber, because it's just a classic. But I did see there was a miniature AT-AT on one of the shelves.
Oh, that's an incredibly hard question to answer. I don't want to say anything boring, but in all honesty, I think I'd actually go for Indiana Jones's like whip.
Yeah.
I mean,
just iconic, isn't it?
As easy as to say Star Wars, I wouldn't want to take one Star Wars thing. I'd want to take everything. Whereas Indy, you kind of get the hat, the whip, and the golden thing.
And I like that they included those as well, because obviously they were still Lucasfilm Productions.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, is Willow from the David Bowie film?
No, that's Labyrinth. Willow was, I believe George Lucas did the story for it, and it was Lucasfilm obviously made. It's the one with Warwick Davis, and you've got Val Kilmer in it as well.
Oh, I've heard about that story. I know, because when you think of Lucasfilm, you think Star Wars, Indy, but then he has done other ones. Obviously, there's the famous Howard the Duck flop.
Ugh.
But I think he did produce Labyrinth, and he's done a few other ones, like Red Tails a few years ago.
Oh, actually, no, I thought Labyrinth was Jim Henson.
Yeah, but Lucas didn't direct it, but it was.
Oh, okay.
It was he helped make it. Still, I think he was one of like the executive producers all over it.
Right.
But I think with Fanboys, though, I mean, we haven't really spoke about it in detail, but the focal plot of it, I mean, you're following Linus, who's got terminal cancer. He won't make it to episode 1. You get that logistic to it, but when you reach Skywalker Ranch, there's this amazing scene when they interrogate each and every one of them, and you just have this fantastic payoff where they get around the computer, and then like they start watching it, and obviously his career comes in, so and so on. It all leads to Linus like watching it, and they don't let him say anything about the film. Then it kind of cuts to the actual release date.
Yeah.
And I think, obviously we spoke earlier that all the sort of the camping fans, the cosplays, everything was incredible. I know it's early to say it, but the film ends with the line like "What if it sucks?" and then it fades to black because that's obviously the Phantom Menace plays for them, which is arguably like one of the most like ironic questions of all time because obviously post Phantom Menace, yeah, okay, a lot of people despise it. But if you put yourself in their shoes in like 1999, it's what we've got now with Star Wars. We know for a fact that Star Wars won't be bad because of the prequels, but back then there hadn't been a bad Star Wars film. They all thought they'd be seeing, another proper Star Wars film. So it was this like the final line is ironically one of the biggest jokes of the whole film, isn't it?
And I think that was the best place they could end the film, to be honest. I think the last line's perfect, and obviously the film's got the benefit of hindsight, and it adds that. You know what? It's almost kind of sad. It's a sad ending, really. It's a poignant ending. Obviously, Linus gets to see the movie before they do, doesn't say anything, and you can tell that he was just happy that he got to see the movie, even though the movie was bad. But the rest of the people don't know that, so when they sit down at the end, you don't even need to see their reaction afterwards. You just end it there, credits, done, because you know how the entire fan base reacted after that movie came out. And that's why I think I'd like a sequel, or even a sequel with the kind of Star Wars situation we're in now. I mean, Star Wars has come back in the last few years really prominently. We've got all the comic books coming out, the whole Disney thing, all the episodes and spin-offs that are coming out. So I think that Fanboys could definitely come back. It could either go back, as you said, towards episode 2 coming out, or it could be coming out now with episode 7. But now that the rights have gone to Disney and stuff, I don't think they'll allow a film like this.
Yeah,
It's offering commentary sort of on their production and the history of it stuff.
yeah, it's a shame because obviously Lucas was so pro these films when he was obviously he still is pro sort of comedies. And yeah, I think that's Disney's issues. They're very uptight. I think they take it badly, but I think to be fair to Lucas, he kind of like banters off the hatred for the films. Because if you look at the one of the things I always look at is the DVD special edition in 2004. The final line of the whole trilogy is "We Are Free," which is Jar Jar Binks, because it cuts to the.
Oh, I'm aware. I'm aware of that scene.
In all honesty, like I think that's like hilarious because it's he's got so much hate, which is far too over the top. The hate he's received. It's kind of pointing out, like, if I was in his shoes, I'd have trolled them all doing something similar. Maybe not to that level, but it's the fact that he's acknowledged that people dislike the film. So I think there's like a bit of credit to him for letting him do that sort of stuff.
But obviously that scene in the special editions, that's just a middle finger, and then he lifts up both middle fingers when he superimposes Hayden Christensen over Sebastian Shaw. Yeah,
that was too much. It's way too much. But I mean, I was reading the Conquer the Universe book, and in all honesty, it seemed that for the special editions in like '95, he was looking at 25 to 100 shots. But it seemed to me more ILM was saying, look, we can fix this. They're fixing the wipe, stuff like that. But then it was getting into it more, and it's like ILM says, look, we can include some more stuff here. So it seems like it was ILM not pressuring him, but kind of like goading him towards it. Because he started off in animation when he was younger. He'd always been like very technical, like he likes the philosophies of film, but he was never afraid to like edit them. So I think it's kind of bad that ILM kind of pushed it, but if you put yourself in their shoes, they're probably petrified of the fact they've got to do episode 1, which is like the biggest like CGI thing ever at the time of release. So it's one of them where it's a tough one talking about him because we forget how much he has done for cinema as a whole.
I do think though with George Lucas, I don't want this to go into like a massive Star Wars discussion because obviously we can save that for like an entire other podcast. But I do think George Lucas, although he had the initial spark, it really wasn't him. It was the collaborators of other people, and you see his original ideas for stuff, like even the original idea for Star Wars, like some of the characters. I think they say that Han Solo was going to be like a green alien looking thing. Luke Skywalker was going to have a robot head, C-3PO was going to talk like a used car salesman, and even the original story idea for Indiana Jones' Last Crusade was going to be Indiana Jones set entirely in a haunted house. What he needs the people to go, no, George, that's a crap idea. Why don't we compromise and make it like this and make it good?
Yeah, I think with episode 4 though, he did do all of that himself. I.e. the changes. Like he had several different drafts for it, and I think he eventually got the collaborators helping on 5 and 6. But to me, it seems that the prequel, is it Rick McCallum who produced the prequels?
Yeah.
It seems that he was too much of a yes man, and I think Lucas himself probably knew that he needed to know, because he contacted Kirshner to help rewrite, and he like politely declined him. So it's one of them. I mean, that could be its own show, because it's such like a controversial standpoint. But it's one of them where I think at the end of the day it paid off, and it is his creation in all honesty.
And the sad thing is they're always going to be there, but you just get to a stage of acceptance eventually, although the road to that acceptance is quite turbulent and takes a long time. But yeah, I think I've said pretty much everything I can on Fanboys, really. It's a difficult review, really, because with a film like this, there's not much going on in it, really, in terms of like themes and story and all that, so it may seem just a bit kind of meandering, like, oh, and we like this scene, and this scene was funny, and this scene was cool, but I think we've covered everything we can, really. In terms of recommending it, see, this is a difficult thing. If you're not a Star Wars fan, and you're not kind of clued up into like the geek community and all like the really obscure Star Wars or Star Trek references, I wouldn't recommend it, because I think a lot of the references are going to go over your head. You might find it just a bit dumb, boring. But if you're a Star Wars fan, you know what, I'd say even if you're a Star Trek fan, you might get a bit annoyed in parts, but I think it's still worth watching. What do you think?
I think if you're big into Star Wars, yes, you should have seen this already. I think if you like the Star Wars films, especially the original trilogy, then it's worth watching, just, you know, see what the fandom was like, and if you're old enough to have seen them back then in the cinema and seen the older ones, because I know one or two listeners that are quite older, then it's a film that's definitely worth watching, because obviously their build up to episode 1 could have been similar to this, would have been completely different. But it's one of them. I think it's for the older fans that are in the know, but definitely it'd be interesting to see what Star Trek fans think of this too. Because I think they'd probably like it. I mean, if they made a Star Trek film taking the piss out of Star Wars, I'm going to love it.
Oh, definitely.
Because it's like, even when they're like taking the mick out of Star Wars, it's like, oh yeah, like your Lucas hounds and stuff like that. I thought that's great, to be fair. Because it's true, like the legions, like, so I mean, I know you get fans of both, which is fair enough, but the hardcore versus thing's just such a good dynamic. It's worth watching, I think, even if you dislike Star Wars, just to see what the hype and see how it's affected so many people. It's certainly one to watch to understand a fan's point of view.
And you know, if you're going through a Star Wars drought before episode 7 like we are, before we do a marathon in December, it's a good little film to watch just to tide you over, I think, really. If you're in the Star Wars mood but you don't quite want to watch the films, just throw this in. It's like 90 minutes, you'll love it. But yeah, I've said everything there is to on Fanboys. I think you said everything right.
Yeah, I think it's everything I've got to say.
Somebody tell me what the damn red button's for!
It's light speed, kid.
Light speed.
Yeah.
Punch it!
Make sure you follow us on Facebook. You can find us at facebook.com/cinemasavvy, or on Twitter at cinema_savvy. You can listen to us on iTunes as well. Just search up Cinema Savvy Movie Podcast and you'll find us there. Audio only reviews as well, cinemasavvy.podomatic.com. And we're also on Letterboxd now, if you want to go into that a little bit.
Yeah, so Letterboxd, say it again, it's a sort of social media site for film fans. You create lists, watch lists, favourites. It's quite cool, it's quite new, and it's quite individual. I mean, you create a personalised list. It says a lot about your personality, what you're into. And it's great fun as well, because the only people there are film people. So
And the lists on it will be building up with all these films that we're reviewing, adding to our list and stuff, so it's definitely worth checking it out.
Yep, definitely.
And our main show on Monday will be in anticipation for Jurassic World. We'll be reviewing the Jurassic Park trilogy, so I'm looking forward to that one because, man, Jurassic Park's just a classic. Please rate, like, comment, subscribe on all of our stuff. The channel's growing. It'll be good to get more viewers in for all the summer releases coming out because we're going to bring you a lot more reviews in the future. So Monday, Jurassic Park trilogy, and until then, thanks for listening.